Welcome in, everybody, to the CFP Nation All-America podcast. I'm Bill Trocchi, senior editor at sportingnews.com, alongside Bill Bender, our national college football writer at sportingnews.com, and the president of the Football Writers Association of America, and part-time Cleveland Browns beat reporter, apparently, which is you added that to your list last week. Bill, welcome in. I'm excited to talk a little college football this week. We've got college football playoff stuff we want to talk about. We got ACC quarterbacks we want to talk about, including Notre Dame. And then, of course, we want to touch on your week seeing Shedeur last week.
Yeah, it's good to be on. You know, the NFL schedule release was last night. We have plenty of content at Sporting News about that as well. So, you know, the schedule gods, as I told you, dropped a beauty.
They weren't very nice to you, Bill.
Oh, they absolutely, but they were. Like, I got Bengals, Packers, which are probably, you know, I'm a Green Bay fan. Most of my buddies are Bengals fans. They are playing on my birthday in Lambeau Field. So I couldn't ask for anything. That might be I have to look at the college football playoff schedule that weekend, because that might be the one weekend you normally give me off during the season. That's looking like a prime candidate for that.
Yeah, too bad it wasn't in Cincinnati. You usually catch that one in Cincinnati.
Yeah, and they play at Cleveland this year, so but that's an easier trip and and hopefully an even easier win. But we'll get into the Browns and that quarterback situation in a little bit. I know that, but yeah, great to be on and another week.
All right, let's talk a little Trocchi trivia before we get underway. Like I said, we are going to discuss the ranking of the top 25 ACC quarterbacks. We've done SEC and Big Ten, I think, already. Next week, we'll probably talk about the top 25 overall, which you and I are working on right now. But as far as ACC, who were the top 4 ACC quarterbacks in touchdown passes last season? Who were the top 4? And I think top 3 are pretty easy. Mm-hmm. So that's why I made it 4. I need to test you, Bill. I need to keep you on your toes. So
right.
Before we get into ACC quarterbacks, let's first talk about going to Browns rookie camp. You went last Friday. You wrote 2 stories now for sportingnews.com. One the day of you went last Friday, and you watched Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. The Browns PR staff strangely did not make them available to the media until day 2. You were there day 1, but you got to, sideline pass there, right next to all the workouts and stuff. They're actually media friendly during the practice, which is not, something NFL does during the regular season for sure. So what did you see? What was the atmosphere like? I think people expected it to be kind of a little bit of a circus and whatever you want to call it. I don't think Deion was anywhere to be found. And I think it was something similar to you've seen in the past at past rookie camps.
Yeah, I mean, hope. The wrinkle, obviously, is that Gabriel and Sanders, there's 2. And it's not often that you see 2 rookie quarterbacks in the same rookie camp. I've been to Browns camps. I wasn't there when Johnny was there. I've done Baker when he was there, and it was the savior and number 1 pick. I've seen Deshaun Kaiser at that. But this was probably somewhere in between those 2, where Shedeur and Dillon Gabriel, they've played a ton of football. I think they're both going to stick on the roster. I think they're going to see what they have with these guys this year. And, as it was explained to me, the Browns really like Dillon Gabriel, who played a lot of football between Central Florida and Oklahoma and Oregon, and he didn't throw a lot of interceptions. And Shedeur Sanders, obviously, between Jackson State and Colorado. And I didn't realize this till Nate Zagura, the Browns color commentator on their radio network, told me that Shedeur Sanders has the highest all-time completion percentage in college football history. I had no idea. Like I probably should have, but I looked it up this morning. I was like, yeah, he does.
Yeah, I had no idea either. And that's impressive because he wasn't one of those total dink and dunk type of quarterbacks.
No, he threw down the field a lot. And I think as we have in our breakdown of the Browns quarterback situation that'll run Friday, to me, the one that sticks is going to be the one that can throw. I always rely on this stat from Pro Football Focus. I look at 10 to 19 yards. That's where NFL quarterbacks make their money. They have to be able to play in that range. Anybody can throw a deep ball in college because chances are the guy's open. How do those 2 quarterbacks do in that 10 to 19 range in the preseason? Gabriel was a little better in college at it. Shedeur Sanders threw a ton of touchdowns of 20 yards or more in college, though, and with the receivers he had. So I thought they both looked good, but good against rookies versus good in a couple weeks when, Myles Garrett's out there is going to be the true test. But a really good experience to get up there to Brio. They have a great group of beat reporters, and they've watched a lot of tough seasons up there. Those guys are battle seasoned, no question. But they're the nicest people, and they're going to have a fun, entertaining season.
How short did Dillon Gabriel look from the sideline, Bill? Everyone wants to know, 5'11", can he handle the NFL?
Well, we're going to find out. I mean, I guess the point there is how many under 6 foot quarterbacks have really done it, like really done a great job in the NFL in this century. And you would say Russ would be one. Russ was thick. Russ was also, about draft, I think, second round, I want to say.
More mobile than Dillon Gabriel, too.
More mobile and had a better setup in Seattle, too, because, they had Lynch. They could bring him along. He probably won that starting job sooner than expected. Then Drew Brees, who's the other one, who is arguably, football IQ-wise, maybe the greatest quarterback in that sense of all time, and from the college standpoint, lifted Purdue. I always do that test with quarterbacks. Did they lift the program? Yeah, he certainly lifted Purdue, set a standard there. So that's the challenge for him. And not to mention the challenge of you're not just looking over your shoulder at another quarterback. You're looking at over your shoulder at the quarterback where everybody's got the camera on. Because every camera was on Shedeur Sanders in Berea. It wasn't a media circus. It wasn't, if you're reading those things, it wasn't that. I laughed at one point. Somebody drove their car by Berea's, residential neighborhood area near Baldwin Wallace. Somebody screamed something at Shedeur Sanders. I couldn't make it out, but it was definitely, you could hear the word Shedeur as they drove by and yelled at practice field. So it wasn't like you couldn't hear anything.
So did you get the last question on the Browns and all the QBs? It's just fascinating that they, like Kenny Pickett, they planned on trying to add Gabriel at some point if they decided Shedeur was not worth the first-round pick. And then when it got to the 5th round, they're like, what the heck? We got to take a flyer on him.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was told. So a couple things. They take Dillon Gabriel in the 3rd, and then Andrew Berry, Zagura told me that Andrew Berry told him that a team called him.
He's a GM.
Yeah, Andrew Berry, the GM of the Browns, was told that if you wouldn't have taken Dillon Gabriel in the 3rd, we were going to take him before your 4th round pick. So, okay. And then they said once it got to the end of the 4th round, they were in full court press mode to move up and get Shedeur, because at that point it becomes a value pick to me. When you have a 1st, 2nd round grade and you fall to the 5th round, does it look funny that you took 2 quarterbacks? Yeah. But, the Redskins, or the Commanders, they were called the Redskins then, they did that with RG3 and Kirk Cousins. And it worked both ways, honestly, because RG3 had a hell of a start to his NFL career, but then he hits the knee injury, and then, Kirk Cousins is the one that's still playing. So it's not like they got that wrong. It was I do remember that one. And this one isn't that, though. I don't think this is quite that. One of these guys is probably going to be the backup behind either Pickett or Flacco to start the season.
Yep. And but they will probably get to the QB1 at some point, you would think. So, all right, good stuff there. I want to shift our attention now to the format of the college football playoff, the endless discussions. As we know, the 2025 format will be the same as 2024, although seeding is still up in the air. Still haven't had that unanimous vote that it will be seeded 1 through 12 by the rankings, straight seeding is like they like to call it. But generally, we know what 2025 is going to look like. 2026 is all over the place. Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports had a good story as to kind of where it stands. Where it stands is we don't know where it's going to land. Discord lingers over the amount of automatic qualifiers designated for each conference. So the latest proposal is now 16 rather than 14. I think you and I both thought 14 was the next step. on the road to 16. That seems like they're skipping that and going right to 16, which I think was your preference when we've talked about that in the past. They have talked about, like we've said, the 4 automatic bids for the SEC, the 4 automatic bids for the Big Ten, 2 for the ACC and the Big 12 each, 1 for the best group of 5, leaving 3 at large for the 16-team field that they're talking about. If Notre Dame is ranked in the top 16, they will gobble up one of those at-large bids. That is supposedly going to be written into the contract as well. That leaves 2, maybe 1 for a second group of 5 type of team or whatever. But anyway, the ACC meetings are going on at Amelia Island, Florida this week. And Ross was talking to a bunch of the people down there, and these are some quotes from his story. Quote, "No one likes it," said one ACC AD, I think referring to the automatic qualifier part of the format that they're talking about. Notre Dame's athletic director, Pete Bavacqua, spoke against it inside the ACC meetings. He didn't talk on the record with any media, but he was passionate about not going with that format when he was talking to some of the coaches and ADs and during some of the meetings. And then some of the coaches chimed in, granting spots, said Miami coach Mario Cristobal. That makes 0 sense. Football has never been about gifting. It's about earning. Pat Narduzzi said, I think you should earn your way in. If it comes down to the image of the Big Ten and the SEC and where they are, and there's a lack of respect for the ACC, I don't like it. And then Rhett Lashley from SMU, I thought gave the best quote. It was very interesting. He said, if we guaranteed spots based on the past, just look at the basketball tournament the last 5 years. 6 years or so ago, SEC got 3 or 4 teams in. Now this year they got a record. But if this year's NCAA tournament was predicated on what was going on 5 years ago, maybe 10 of their schools wouldn't have gotten in. It's a loose comparison, but it does make some sense to me. Where do you fall right now on like where the status is? And are you as frustrated as some of the fans and some of the coaches are?
I mean, if you're going to do it this way, it's not the Electoral College. Just seed them according to the rankings. I'll die on this hill because you should put 16 teams in because that's where we're going. You should ditch the conference championship games. I know our colleague Mike DeCourcy likes them. I don't. In this format, they're useless other than an extra game. I would lose the automatic qualifier tag altogether, which would get me kicked out of this room automatically. But just the top 16 teams, that's it. And we can do a combination of a committee of people and a BCS-style computer, combine the two, average them out. Those are your 16. If you're 17, let me pull up. Hold on. Give me a second. I'll pull up the playoff rankings from last year. I want to see who was 17 last year. So if you did that last year and just by the rankings, this was
the best team that didn't get in was sorry. Go ahead with 16.
17 was BYU at 10-2. Too bad, BYU. Clemson 10-3, they get in. I guess this is with conference championship games though. I'll push it back a week because it would be this is the rankings without the conference championship games. Iowa State 16, Clemson 17 at 9-3.
Oh.
Which Iowa State had to put something out there on conference championship weekend too. I guess you could argue Clemson got it. They didn't. Clemson also lost to South Carolina and had 3 losses, and Iowa State was 10-2. So I could justify this. I may have to write a column. This is how I would do it. And if I break these down by school, so if we did it that way and skip the conference championship game, let's do this for fun real quick. Top 16.
So you're saying at the end of the season is the
regular
12 game regular season, and then let's jump right into a 16-team bracket with no auto bids.
No, and here's your 16 teams. Oregon, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, 1 through 4. Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee, SMU, 5 through 8. Indiana, 9. Boise State, Alabama, Miami, 10 through 12. And Ole Miss, South Carolina, Arizona State, Iowa State. I mean, everybody's represented. There's no automatics. The first 4 out, which was what we would spend our entire team year talking about. Clemson, you got to figure Dabo would probably have a pretty good press conference. BYU 10-2. They didn't play Iowa State. Missouri 9-3. Don't care. Saw them lose 3 times. And UNLV at 10-2, who lost to Boise State in the regular season. I mean, that's how I would do it. They're never going to do it that way because they're going to wrangle about. I think once you have automatic qualifiers, if it's not born out of a championship game and you're just giving people votes, it feels a little bit like the House of Representatives in the United States. And I don't do politics, as you know, because not on sports podcast anyway, because it doesn't go anywhere.
So, yeah, that's a lot of good points you brought up. That was interesting, an interesting proposal to me. I mean, obviously, the automatic bids is the rub. That's the problem right now. That's the biggest debate. I think everyone agrees about seeding should be just straight seeding, whether or not you should get auto bids. With a 16-team bracket, the 4 conference champions are going to be in. Period. So you really don't need it. You might need it for a group of 5 if you're married to the group of 5 concept. If the group of 5, quote unquote, champion or the highest ranked happens to be in the 17 to 20 range, should we have them in the tournament? I don't think that would mess things up. I think that would be fine. And the 16th team gets knocked out that particular year or whatever. So I don't have a problem with that. I think I agree with the coaches that they're saying, multiple auto bids just doesn't make sense. There's no reason to predetermine. And I thought that basketball example was interesting that the SEC got 14 bids in the basketball tournament this year, 14 out of 16. It's because they had great teams, but you don't guarantee a conference 6 teams if they don't deserve 6 teams, So I don't know if they're doing it for cost certainty, income certainty, really. Okay, we know we're going to get 4 bids, so we can budget this, that, and the other thing. But football is about competition, and it's about earning your spots. And I totally agree with those coaches.
To Rhett's point too, the nature of conferences changes. Like 10 years ago, if you'd have told me, basketball wise anyway, like if you'd have told me, hey, Billy, the ACC is going to struggle to get 4 teams in. Like, what are you talking about, dude? They have Duke, North Carolina, Syracuse. Like, I can name 5 and then the SEC is going to set a record. What are you talking about? Like, they barely get 3 teams. Like, the nature of the college football conferences could change less. It'll change less. I mean, the SEC will probably still be strong, when you have 10 ranked teams. The Big Ten with the money rolling in, yeah, they're going to be strong. But
until they start doing more realignment.
Yeah, until we get the next round of that. So, to me, it just always made sense. Just put those 16 teams in. And I may write that column for us because I feel strongly about it that, that eliminates all the crying that we witnessed, which was the stain on the first weekend of the college football playoff, was all the complaining about who was in. And a lot of that was SEC driven. But in this format, let me see. They would get South Carolina, Ole Miss, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, Texas. 6 of the 16 from the SEC. Maybe they get shelled. Maybe they don't. Plus, it's a good number. Maybe we could play the first 2 rounds on campus. I do think we're going to 16. I do hope that we never go past 16. Otherwise, this will become a joke. You were telling me something about a proposal about a play-in game.
I'll talk about that next.
You do that. So I'll set you up for that. Go ahead and talk about as if we need to confuse people more. Let's do this. Go ahead.
It's brutal. But first, one last point is it's important to me that the field doesn't get too big, that you want quality teams left out, right? You want it to be an accomplishment to make the tournament. And people worried about 12, 8's too many, 12's too many, 16, whatever. Read me again those 17, 18, 19 from last year that would not have gotten in. I think those teams were still pretty good.
Clemson, they were solid. BYU was 10-2, and then the Big 12 teams that get in. So BYU out, Iowa State. Where's Arizona State? Arizona State, Iowa State are your only Big 12 teams, and they're 15 and 16. So there would be some complaining there, right?
It would be, but there's
how
still some
much?
quality teams that didn't make it. I guess that's my point.
BYU doesn't make it. Missouri doesn't make it. And then you take it down to like Illinois, Syracuse, Colorado.
I want a quality bubble. That's what makes it exciting. So I wish they would stay at 12 because last year we saw it. Like there were really good teams that didn't make it, right?
Well,
you know,
if you
on any given day, Alabama was a really, really, really good team, right? We saw them beat Georgia, beat them like a drum for a half, and they didn't get in. They didn't get into the 12 teams. So that's the fun part to me is when you have a quality bubble.
Well, if you wanted a quality bubble, you could just cut it to 8 teams, like which is what it should be. Like Indiana, Boise State, Alabama, Miami are your bubble then. Those guys are out. Like, so yeah, but I mean that's not even worth debating because we're not going back. No playoff in American history has, to my knowledge, contracted.
No,
do they?
Right.
I think we've only gone up in the MLB, the NBA, the NFL. We have playing games in the NBA now. Like, yeah, that we're not contracting the college football playoff anytime soon.
No.
So there's no use in talking about it.
So the 16-team proposal that's been out there, and again, their next meeting is in June, where they will, try to make some progress, at least on 25 and the straight seating, but hopefully on 26 as well. They want to have a 4-team, essentially a play-in, where 13 plays 16, 14 plays 15. As a play-in round, okay, that shaves it down to a 14-team field once those 2 teams lose, and then the 14-team bracket plays out as the 1 seed gets a bye to the quarterfinals, the 2 seed gets a bye to the quarterfinals, and then they have a first round, they have a quarterfinal, semifinal, and final. So if you are a 13 through 16. And you reach the national championship game, you got to win 4 games just to reach it. So to win it, you have to win 5 games, which if one of those teams also played a league championship game, that's 6 games after your 12-game regular season. So your playoff is 50% as long as your regular season. That would be the equivalent of having a baseball team play 81 more games after they played 162 games. So I'm not a huge fan of that, and it would like really, really confuse the fans beyond belief. And I don't know, how you're going to set that up when, okay, you have your 2 play-in games one weekend. The next weekend you have 12 games that you got to play. No, 6 games. Sorry, 6 games that you got to play. You got to get rid of 6 teams. Then you'll be down to the quarterfinals. What are you going to have? A doubleheader on Friday and 4 games on Saturday? Like that's a lot to squeeze in to a weekend where you're going to be going head to head with the NFL again.
Yeah. Those of us who had kids in travel sports the last 6 years understand these quirky brackets because we've had to do these, but it's dumb. Like to do these, just go 1 to 16.
1 to 16 would be
that's
right.
It. Like,
do you want your fans to understand it, or they not want to understand? And they've been ingrained for 50 years with the college basketball tournament. They understand how it works. This would be confusing.
They understand the first 4, but it took a minute. Like they'd be like, "Why are they?" I still get like, "Where's True TV? Why are these tournament games Tuesday?" We don't even pick them on the bracket. By the way, most people don't even pick those games unless you're in a hyper nerdy bracket. So, yeah, I just go 1 to 16. Like it's simple. And I would ditch the automatic qualifiers. We don't, and you just said it, like you can't pretend like you care about player safety if you're going to make college kids play 18 games. That's more than, 18 NFL teams will play at that point because 18 teams will not make the playoff. I don't know, Bill. I think there's a lot to discuss there. They keep it simple is always my advice. And I wish I could sit in that room with Mr. Clark and General Clark and all these commissioners and just say, well, why don't you just keep it simple? That's what people like. People like simplicity to get to that number 1 spot.
He's become General Clark since January. He was not referred to that
Yeah.
as
He's a nice guy. Rich knows what they're doing there. And I just think everybody, but we can pretend like the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12, and the Big 10 commissioners are doing what's best for college football, but they will always protect the backyard first. I get that. We always joke about that with me. Like, I care more about, these Big 10 games more than anything else, or, but that's part of the protect your backyard and then see what's past the backyard after.
All right, so we will find out more about that in June, like I said, but it's shaping up as more confusion and more consternation and more debate than as usual. It's been a 5-year stretch where we've always just trying to figure out how we're going to do this college football playoff. So let's swing over to the ACC quarterback rankings live on sportingnews.com. I worked on these last week, and we won't obviously go through everybody, but I had a top 4 of Cade Klubnik, Haynes King from Georgia Tech, Carson Beck at Miami, who, by the way, is cleared for summer workouts. So that's a good sign that he will be fully healthy in the fall. And then SMU's Kevin Jennings. Then it kind of dropped off a little bit. What did you think of that top 4? That's pretty solid to me.
I saw Brad Crawford's top 50 quarterbacks for the year. He has Klubnik 1. I know ours are coming back out next week, but I like Haynes King a lot, the experience, the 31 starts. I think you've nailed Beck and his placement, because although some would say, well, Jennings has this. Top 4 solid, though. Klubnik, his numbers are a lot better than you think. Like even when I was starting this process of ranking quarterbacks, when I was like 36 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, really? And he was hot. There was a point last year where they were one of the hottest offenses in the country. Now, granted, that didn't go that way in South Carolina, but that'll be the pressure point for him going into that LSU game early. Can he do it against an SEC defense?
Is he the Deshaun Watson they've been waiting for, the Trevor Lawrence they've been waiting for? You know what I mean?
I don't think
hasn't been yet, but he might be this year.
No, but I think he's followed, what he hasn't. You can't say same speech I would give about Drew Aller, that those guys were 5-star quarterbacks. Drew Aller might have been a high 4. They've stayed with the program. They've started multiple seasons. They've led the team to the playoff. In Cade's case, he's led a conference championship run. And they're probably both going to be in the conversation as a day 1 or day 2 NFL draft pick. So I would say in the NIL transfer portal era, Clemson got their investment, even if he's not quite the Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson type talent that those two were.
The next guy on my list was a guy that's very intriguing, kind of a wild card, Miller Moss. 10 starts at USC, going to Louisville to work with quarterback master Jeff Brom, who has put his last 3 QBs into the NFL. Aiden O'Connell from Purdue, Jack Plummer, and Tyler Shuck from last year, first round. Not first round, but what round did Shuck go?
Third
round to the
second round.
Second round to the Saints. So he knows how to get guys in the NFL. Miller Moss was a 5-star out of high school. None of those guys were 5 stars out of high school. I don't know what to expect out of Miller Moss. What do you think?
I think Jeff Brom gets the most out of his guys. The last 2, like you said, were day 2 guys, and Aiden O'Connell's played a lot of NFL football. Whatever your opinion of Aiden O'Connell is, he's cashing NFL checks as a quarterback. And so Tyler Shuck might start week 1 with the Derek Carr retirement news. So
yep.
Long-winded way of saying I think Miller Moss could catch on very easily with Jeff Brom. Jeff Brom's good with quarterbacks. That's a good quarterback system. They've got good receivers. He's accurate. The story about Miller Moss flipped, much like USC's season flipped when they lost against Michigan last year. It just kind of all went downhill for him there. But I think he could be one of those impact. He'll probably start around like when you do that, we're doing ours in that quarterback rankings. We're kind of going back and forth about whether or not he'll be in that top 25, but he would be on the fringe anyway.
His numbers were decent at USC, 284 yards a game passing. 64% completion percentage, 18 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. 9 interceptions, a little high. The biggest stat not in his favor, 4-5 in his 9 starts. Now, they did lose to Michigan. They lost to Michigan because they couldn't tackle. They didn't lose because of Miller Moss that afternoon. But, yeah, so he's a wild card. He could be number 1 on this list after the season. Who knows? Last guy I want to touch on, freshman CJ Carr. We include Notre Dame in our ACC rankings when we divvy up Power 4 type of stuff because they play 5 ACC teams a year. So Notre Dame had a publicized quarterback battle in the spring. CJ Carr won it. Steve Angeli stayed in the ACC, actually went to Syracuse. So we'll see how he does there. I had CJ Carr 7th on this list, and that's just throwing a dart at a dartboard. But reports are, he obviously had a good spring.
Yeah, and I like the placement. I mean, upside wise, I would throw him over the Mensa from Duke. But that's the excitement level here that they finally do have a 5-star quarterback that, obviously I know who he is from Lloyd. I know who Lloyd Carr is. I watched him for about 20 years. And Notre Dame ruling with a quarterback that isn't a transfer quarterback is the interesting part, because that's been a minute since they've done that, especially with Marcus Freeman. So the homegrown option, going to be in charge of pretty good offense. I think Notre Dame's receivers are better than given credit for in some ways. And if CJ Carr can get the ball out, get it on time to them, we're going to find out. And right off the go, though, we'll find out real quick because, they're playing up against Miami and Carson Beck, who I've done those quarterback lists for years. I think this is the 4th year that Carson Beck's been on it. 3rd at least, where, he'll be in the top 25. So there's a lot riding for that game on hit for him as well. But, just strictly speaking from the Midwest standpoint, the 4 programs I probably pay the most attention to, Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, Penn State, 3 of them got first-year starters. So whether it's CJ Carr, Bryce Underwood, or Julian Sayin or Lincoln Keenholz, whoever starts at Ohio State, I think that's an exciting thing that you've got these top 15, top 10 schools and the programs that matter the most in the Midwest, and 3 of them got first-year quarterbacks.
And Ohio State won't be easing in to their schedule either.
No, they're coming right out of Texas.
Notre Dame, the only 2 teams that are on the composite preseason top 25s that we do are Texas A&M and Miami. Those are the first 2 games for CJ Carr. So he's going to learn pretty quick. They're going to learn what they have right off the bat, or he might take some lumps. They might go 1-1. They might go 0-2. Who knows what could be in store. But he doesn't have a lot of time to develop and get some game experience before he is tested. And the same thing's going to be for Julian Sayin if he ends up being the starter against Texas.
I mean, we're going to talk about it all summer, but week 1 is ridiculous. Like, with the games, the stages.
In a good way, baby.
Yeah, they're already arguing. Like, I was on the Bobby Carpenter show this week, and we talked about how Ohio State, Texas, they don't want it at noon. Like, they wanted that game in prime time, and they hate that it's at noon. But I was like, Clemson, LSU's in prime time, and Notre Dame, Miami, and just North Carolina, their debut with TCU on Labor Day. There's so many really good. This is a concern we had with the playoff era, that we wouldn't have weekends like this in September. But this week 1, and I mean, if I had went back and looked the last 5 years, it's got to be the best one.
It's going to be fun for sure. All right, let's get out of here, but I got to revisit my Trocchi trivia question, see if I got you. Who were the top 4 ACC quarterbacks in touchdown passes last season?
Well, I got 3 of them. The 4th one might be a problem.
Cam Ward, Miami, 39.
Klubnik.
Cade Klubnik, Clemson, 36.
McCord. Did McCord lead, or was it Ward led, then McCord, right? Or was McCord third?
McCord, Syracuse, 34. Klubnik had a couple extra games, though.
So is Shuck next? That would be my easy. That feels too easy, but it's not Shuck.
Not Shuck.
Is it a returning quarterback?
No. Definitely a surprise. It was a little bit of a trick question, but
hold on. It feels like it now.
He threw 26, so he's,
Okay.
he's behind the top tier there.
Oh boy.
I was surprised to see his name.
I have no idea.
Malik Murphy, Duke.
Really? 20. Okay, yeah, I would have done 10 guesses. And
Not on your radar.
no, he must have had a
top
couple big
ACC
games
player.
in there.
Yeah. So anyway, Ward, Klubnik, McCord, and Malik Murphy from Duke, who will not be the Duke quarterback this year. So, all right. Well, that will do it for our show. That was fun. Thank you to everyone for listening to the CFB Nation All-America podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you to Irish Breakdown, your source for Notre Dame football information. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you soon.